So, retirement is a lot more than just a plan, it's about enjoying life. Fellow investors, bonjour! This is Mike Leroux, founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks and passionate investor. You're listening to the Dividend Guy Blog podcast, where I and my co-host Véronique will help you invest with more conviction so you can enjoy your retirement. Growth investors, bonjour, Mike Leroux here. You're listening to the Dividend Guy podcast. I am with my co-host Véronique, probably between two meat pies or something like this, like cooking right before Christmas. How can you still have time to record those podcasts, Véro?
I wonder. Honestly, I have no clue. But Mike, thinking about it, we will meet tomorrow for our nice suppers. Like we do those team gathers at times, and Christmas is always a good opportunity for us. So I can't wait for that. That will be fun.
For sure.
And as funny as it may seem, the inspiration for this episode first came from my husband, a 39-year-old man still working full time. And yes, we're going to talk about retirement. But what's fascinating about him is his quest to know what healthy old people did to stay in such good shape in like their 90s. So he watches like documentaries, he read about them, and he try to apply what they share in common to his own life. And well, we work with retirees daily, Mike, so we start to know some parts as well, right? And I thought, how interesting would that be for the podcast? So this episode is part one of two. Today, we'll cover what happy retirees have in common, and next week, we'll share 5 tips for a successful transition to retirement. So hit pause and the subscribe button underneath our podcast logo now as not to miss it. So, Mike, let's do this. If there is one thing I'd like listeners to remember after this episode is the word vision. It all starts with that. So happy retirees have a clear vision of their retirement, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about that, retirement as a stage in life is really not a destination. It's really a new step. It's like a big trip. I like to compare that with the mini retirement I did in 2016, 2017 when I took a sabbatical and decided to travel in an RV, where this entire year was a long journey that needs preparation before, but then once you're in it, you kind of like realize that sometimes your vision was not what you thought it would be. Like, for example, I thought that we would like wake up in the morning, do like 2 hours of homework with the children, and then drive a little bit, and then be happy and do some activities. And I mean, from the best of my memory, I don't even remember that I had one single day that looked like that. So having a clear vision of your plan of your retirement is really, really important, especially because it's not going to be the same life as it used to. So of course you're going to have like that bucket list or that to-do list, and then you're going to rush through over. But once that's done, you're going to start wondering, okay, so what's about retirement? Like, what is my purpose now, and where should I go from there? So having this vision, thinking about what you're really going to do daily, weekly, yearly, once you do not have to wake up and work, that's a huge part of having a happy retirement.
Mhm. So this vision typically has like 3 aspects, great aspects: lifestyle, purpose, and fun. The lifestyle is determined by where you live, your activities, what you eat, the car you drive. In other words, like you've said, what does your typical day look like once you wake up in retirement? But how else would you help listeners get a clear vision of their lifestyle, Mike?
Well, it's really important to start thinking about it because the lifestyle you envision at retirement will kind of drive the budget that you need, right? So I remember that when I was a financial planner, I had a client that told me, "Oh, I need a minimum of $175,000 a year to retire. If not, I cannot do anything if I want." And then sometimes I had like other clients that had like less expensive needs, I guess, because I had another one that said, "Well, you know what, Mike? I just bought myself a brand new snowboards with some boots and clips, and as long as I can snowboard during winter time and then play music the rest of the time, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be super happy. I'm debt free." And this particular client retired at the early age of like 51, and he didn't need much, but that was what he really wanted to do. So it depends on, would you like to do 3 cruises a year and then give like $50,000 yearly gift to your children so they can buy their house of their dream?
Mm-hmm.
Or you just want to like die with zero and then spend everything on yourself? Those are all the types of things that needs to be determined before you retire, because you don't want to feel lost, because you're going to lose a big sense of purpose, and that is huge at retirement. You lose your job, you lose your colleagues, and you wonder, who are you anymore? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like how many times people ask you, so what do you do in life? And then you answer by the type of work you're doing. So
Right.
once you're retired, it sounds like a bit like dull to just say, well, I'm retired. So, like, in other words, I don't do anything. I just don't wake up in the morning and I don't do anything. I just like watch TV, So, so you kind of want to do something, and like having hobbies can help. Or sometimes, like one thing that I've already noticed as my children are growing up, there is also this stage where at one point in life, when you're creating your family, you kind of like just define yourself as, oh, I'm working there and I am a parent. So I'm the
Mm-hmm.
father of, I'm the mother of, and that's pretty much all I do. And during the weekend, I mean, it's just like washing clothes, cleaning the house, and then running for activities. But once those kids are gone, you're just like, okay, so, oh, hey, look at that. I have a husband, I have a wife. Like, who are you? Like, so, like, trying to, like, it's the same thing for retirement. If you just focus on being active at work, well, once you retire, it's going to feel empty.
Mm-hmm.
The same way when children are leaving the house, if you have not taken the habit of doing like activities or hobbies with your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
well, you may end up into a couple crisis because you won't recognize the person that is sitting next to you, and you're not be fulfilling your daily role of a parent, because now your son is like 25 years old and he doesn't necessarily want to talk to his mother every single day. So that's why it's really important to take that time and say, okay, so what interesting things I could do besides traveling and eating all the night in the nice restaurants that I have on my list.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, health is also included in lifestyle because I mean, if you have health issues, you must consider them in your vision. But more importantly, you should consider how your lifestyle will help you keep yourself healthy, right? I mean, health like is directly related to happiness.
So are you telling me that once I reach retirement, I will not be allowed to visit all the nice restaurants I have on my list? Because that's kind of like a bummer. So jokes aside, you're right. Mental and physical health is super important, and of course, if you have a good healthy habit, such as like taking walks or not going to your favorite restaurants every single week, so then it's going to help you being healthy, and health will also have a big influence on your financial decisions. Like for example, if you have a long history in your family that everyone is living up to 90, 95, 100 years old, well, maybe you're going to take your government benefits such as CPP and OS a little bit like longer in time, because you know that you will be entitled to receive them for a very long period. There's also estate planning that is super important. So maybe if you have health issues, you're going to be more inclined to withdraw more your RSP faster to minimize taxes for your estate. So those are the things that will have an influence on both sides. So on
Mhm.
one side, you want to be happy, you want to be healthy, but on the other, like the stage of your health will have like big impact on how you make your decisions at retirement. So maybe you want to get money as soon as possible or as way long as possible. So it
Mhm.
really depends on where you stand.
Now, we mentioned purpose in the recent fire episode we did at thedividendguyblog.com/202. And you kind of quickly mentioned it also in the introduction, but we need to expand on this because many underestimate it. What are the primary sources that give a sense of purpose?
Yeah, I remember how many clients barging into my office after 6 months being retired. They just like fulfilled all their bucket list up front, and then they're just like, yeah, now I have like just a few items left, and I'm bored to death. And do you have any like small business to buy or like anywhere I could work? Because I just can't stay at home anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really important to like in part of your vision to have this kind of purpose. You may want to even go back to a part-time job just to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it could be like as super simple as being part of like social clubs or doing some volunteering, which is great because you will feel useful again. And that actually reminds me of your father-in-law who
Mm-hmm.
runs through the arenas all the time because you have like two sons playing hockey.
Right.
And he kind of ironically he is retired, but I think he's working more now than he was working when he when he was part of the workforce. And one thing that he does like small renovation. So at one point, he helped me out, like finishing like some work in my basement, and we were painting together. And then he said, yeah, like a lot of my friends, they're retired, they don't do much. And then they say, well, now it's April, so what are you gonna do all day? Like you should be super happy now. You have some free times. You don't have to go to the arenas and watch your grandchildren. And he answered back, and he's like, well, I'm actually like disappointed
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like sad that this like season is over, and I can't wait until September so it can start again, because what do you want me to do with my time besides spending it with my
Right.
family? So it's you can find purpose pretty much everywhere. I think the key here is to feel useful at something, to be busy, and making sure that you do things that as a meaning for you. So for your father-in-law, it was really just to hang around with his family, to watch his grandchildren grow up. So in the end, he just wanted to be part of that family, and trying to help as much as he could.
Mm-hmm. And actually, like just a quick side note, my father-in-law is really a great example. Honestly, like he's almost 70 now. It doesn't look like it at all. He's such in a good shape. He's staying busy all the time, and he's like involved in all of his grandchildren lives, not just my kids, like the kids from my sister-in-law also. So anyway, yeah, very inspiring. But Mike, why is it so crucial for a happy retirement?
It's crucial because it's part of a change in mindset. You work all your life, you are defined by your work, you're defined by what you do, and then you need to change your identity. And without this sense of purpose, you will just say, well, there's no meaning of like waking up in the morning. So having those hobbies, like doing things every day, having a good reason to have like kind of like a routine, because you we had a routine your our entire life. And as much as sometimes it sucks to have one, it brings order, and it forces you to do things one after the other, so it keeps up with your motivation as well. And I think that that is like super important, because at this point you're gonna have like all the time in the world, and you can decide to just waste it away or actually do something meaningful about it and fun.
Mhm. Hey, dividend growth investors, this is Vero. Mike is currently taking a sip of water, which gives us 10 seconds, and I literally mean 10 seconds to grow the podcast together. Go on Spotify or Apple Podcast, hit pause, and then under our logo, you'll see two very interesting buttons. One to subscribe, hit that subscribe button now, and then give us a 5-star rating. Our goal is to help more investors just like you. So please spread the love. Thank you. And listeners, sometimes I have the feeling that I hear you think, and you might listen to us right now and think, well, I've just spent 40 years of my life going to work and caring for my family. I had no time outside of that. Now I get what you're talking about, but how should I know of another meaning? And I'm tempted to say that trying something new could help, right?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I'm already doing this right now, but it's probably because I kind of like chose that lifestyle design where I'm not really retired, but I'm retired in the sense where what I do for work is more like a hobby than anything else. It's a very demanding hobby because I spend a lot of time. But at the same time, I'm just trying to do like different things and trying like other like activities to discover what I would like to do moving forward. And then sometimes it's gonna like ended up into a passion, and then some other times not going to be that interesting. But I
Hmm.
mean, it's been 2 years now that I have dogs at home, which has brought a lot of life in the, in the house. And then we're both laughing while we're recording because I think it's been like the fifth time that we have to stop the recording because one of our dogs is barking somewhere. So, anyways, but
Yes.
yeah, I mean, waking up in the morning having that walk with our dogs is just like a lot of fun, and I did not have that in my life before. So like trying as many different things as possible,
Hmm.
and eventually something's going to stick to the wall, and then you're going to find yourself a new hobby or a new passion.
Right. And then comes the fun. So, through your years as a financial planner and during the last decade chatting with TSR members, you know that happy retirees are the ones who have fun. And again, fun can mean like many, many things like traveling, meeting friends, spending time outdoors. But what is the best way to have a clear vision and why is it important?
Well, again, it's important to do something with your time, and it's also important because you want to finance that fun. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's great to think, oh, I'm going to do all those activities, but maybe you're going to have a hard time spending at retirement, mostly because you had that mindset of, oh, I have to save money. But at this stage of your life, you're at the opposite side. So now it's time to think, oh, now I'm allowed to withdraw money from my portfolio and
Hmm.
spend that money and have fun, which is very, very difficult to do at the beginning, especially if you do not have a plan. Mostly because the plan would tell you it's okay to have fun, it's okay to spend money. And if you don't have it, well, you're going to keep wondering, so can I spend $5,000 a year on traveling, or is it
Hmm.
eight, or is it none at all? Because at the age of 75, I'm gonna end up like eating crab dinner and I have nothing in my portfolio anymore. So having this balance between knowing how much you want to spend and on which kind of activities, and knowing that you can actually finance it with your portfolio or your various sources of income with like pensions and stuff, it's really, really important.
Now, the second word I'd like you listeners to remember after this episode is plan. We have come to the conclusion that happy retirees not only have a clear vision, but also put that vision into a plan, right, Mike?
Yeah, because without a plan, you don't know exactly when you're going to retire. You don't know how much you're going to spend. You don't know how long it's going to last. So the plan will be also a permission to spend. It will be a freedom of choice. And I remember one of my clients, and it's kind of ironic because she had all the money she needed to retire. Everything was super nice. She kind of knew that. But at the same time, she did not see it on paper. She was not able to picture the evolution of her net worth throughout time. And therefore, she always wanted to buy the car of her dream, a brand new BMW, but never did it until we did that projection. And then she
Mm.
understood, oh my God, I can actually afford to reward myself for all those years of sacrifice, buy myself a new car, and just enjoy it. And she was able to do that because then she gained that permission to spend. She gained that freedom of choosing, and she
Mhm.
ended up sending me a picture of her in her car, a bright blue BMW. Was nice, like she was smiling like there's no tomorrow, and I just felt so good for her that now she could finally do the things she wanted, but she was
Mhm.
unsure she could afford it until she had a proper plan done for her.
So there are two main sides of the plan: financial and investment. Before we continue, I'd like to tell you, listeners, that we will go through the budget more in depth in next week's episode. But today, we'll give you the great lines of retirement planning. So, Mike, what should a good financial plan include to make our retirement vision come true?
A ton of pages, a ton of graphs, and a ton of charts. And there you go. So if it's not like 25, 30 pages, it's not a good plan. All right, jokes aside, the number of pages are not important. What is really, really important is you have an asset projection. So you need to know where your investment account, where your house, your rental properties value are going to be in 5, 10, 25 years. So it will also be a very useful method to do a checkpoint in time. So in
Mhm.
5 years from now, according to the plan, my RSP should be 1 million. What happens if it's 1.2? Just means that you have more money to spend. But if it's at 750, now you have to go back and look at what went wrong with your plan, because definitely you're spending too much, you made bad investment, the stock market is terrible, but there is something. So having a clear asset projection is super important, and it's also going to show you that you can actually achieve your financial goals. Then you need, of course, a cash flow projection. So where that money is going to come from. You want to spend $50,000 a year, that's great. But then what's going to happen? How are you going to do that? From which account you're going to withdraw to minimize taxes, for example, and in
Mhm.
which order you need to prepare those accounts. Sometimes it's best to start with non-registered. Sometimes it's best to start with the RRSP. Sometimes it's something else. So having a clear order is really important. Of course, when you talk about cash flow projections and you're talking about from which account you should withdraw, you will have a part where you talk about tax optimization. So you look at all the sources of revenues you're going to get: government benefit, pension, rental income, side income, investments,
Mhm.
and annuities, whatever. And then you look at how you can optimize those source of income so you can pay less taxes, because of course it's probably the time that you're going to have major decisions to make that could end up into thousands of dollars that you'd save on taxes. Just be careful not to fall into tax obsession, because at
Mhm.
one point a highly complex plan is not necessarily going to make you happy. It's just going to make you concerned about, am I doing this right? Am I doing the right stuff? So try to keep it as simple as possible. And finally, well, unfortunately, we have to talk about it, but a good financial plan should also show how much taxes you're going to pay once you pass away. So you should have a estate planning part of it, showing you like what's going to happen if you pass away before your spouse, or if your spouse pass away before you, and how you're going to handle those matters if you need life insurance to cover capital gains at the end, or make sure that you have enough liquidity to pay off your debts and so on. So a good plan will include all of this: so asset projection, cash flow projection, tax optimization, and estate planning.
Okay, but Mike, what are the three most important metrics to build that financial plan?
So there are like three metrics you can play around that will have the greatest impact. The first one is how much you save. So how much you invest every year before you get to retirement. So the more you put aside, the more money you can spend at retirement, or the earlier you can retire.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, that is the second metric you can play around, is the age at when you retire.
Mm.
When you get close to retirement, it's interesting to look at what would be the impact of working one more year. Sometimes it doesn't have a major impact. Some other times it enables you to reach another level at work, to get a pension, to get a new bonus, to pay off some debts. So on top of like how much you save, when you retire will make a huge difference. And finally, it's your expected return. So how you invest that money. So it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to put like $1,000 a month. But then if you invest that into a cash account and then you wait until you have the right timing to get into the market and you wait for 5 years, well, those 5 years are not going to generate the same amount of returns than if you were invested during all that time. So at this point, you keep it relatively simple. You look at the proportion of your portfolio invested in equities, the portion of in fixed income and in cash, and then you have an expected return. The goal here is not to make great looking graph, but rather be a little bit more conservative, because it's great to plan a 10% return, but if you don't make it and you just generate 7, you're going to have a problem. If you plan
Mhm.
with 7 and you end up generating 10, the biggest problem you will have
Right.
is to know if you're going to buy a BMW or a Mercedes.
Mhm. Mike, we are about to share such exciting news with listeners. I can't wait to see their reaction. Over the years, we have seen how Canadians need guidance and support to transition to retirement, and we've decided to create Retirement Loop for them. What is Retirement Loop?
So, Retirement Loop has been created to answer a big problem in the industry. So, a lot of people, they want to manage their portfolio by themselves, they want to take control, but they do still have a lot of questions about when is the right time to convert their RSP into a RIF, when is the right time to take CPP and OAS, and all the other questions like such as when can I retire, how much can I spend, and what is the best way to minimize taxes. Their only solution is usually to go see a financial advisor. Unfortunately, the way that financial advisor are like paid, they're more interested in selling investment products than actually doing that kind of work. And I'm not saying that none of them are doing it, but a lot of people thought maybe I couldn't do it myself and I can learn how to build my own plan.
Mhm.
And once I'm retired, making sure that everything is under control, I make the right checkpoints, and that the ship is steady. And this is exactly what Retirement Loop is. It's a retirement community where everyone can help each other. So, plenty of people that are about to retire or that are retired already, enabling to share their experience and learn together.
But, Mike, what tools, resources, or connections should members expect in this community?
So we decided to divide Retirement Loop in three categories. We have the planning space where you're going to build your own projections. So you're going to find tools on how to build your projections, build them, and then optimize your taxes. Then there's the part about investing, because yes, it needs some money to retire, apparently. So we're not going to talk about like how to find stocks as we do at Dividend Stocks Rock, but rather talk about various strategies such as like ETF, bonds, stocks, covered calls, you name it. So the goal is how you can create your paycheck at retirement using a good strategy. And then there is the enjoy part, because retirement is not about finance, it's about enjoying life, right? So you work super hard, and at retirement, it's time that you enjoy the life. So we're going to talk about traveling, staying healthy, talking about other hobbies. So the goal is really to enabling that connection across many people in your situation, looking for answers and having a good time to just enjoy their retirement a little bit more.
And as soon as we publicly launch the community, there will be a limited time discounted price offer, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of crazy. We did a pre-launch among DSR members, and we have over 500 members already.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there will be a special price. It's coming up, and that price is going to last for just a few days, and then we're going to close the doors because the goal was not actually to reach 500 members on the first year. So I'm almost putting the brake right now to not let too many people in, so we can all have a nice experience and that we can grow as a community. But definitely, I think we just hit the nail right now, having the a great service, helping the right people.
Mm-hmm. So think about that, listeners. Over 500 members ready to welcome you. You don't want to miss this. So join the waitlist now to get more details and access the discounted lunch price at thedividendguyblog.com/loop. thedividendguyblog.com/loop. I'll see you there. Of course, we can't think of retirement without mentioning investment. How is the portfolio plan linked to the financial plan?
So a lot of investors, they want to go into super high details saying, oh, this account will generate 4.17% in yield and therefore like 2.3% of returns. Like I said, you keep it clean, you keep it simple, and you go with overall total return, because in the end, it doesn't matter if it comes from interest income, dividend,
Mhm.
or capital gains. It's important is the total return that you generate. So if you go from $100,000 and 150, the important part is the $50,000 gain, regardless where it's coming from.
Mhm.
So, what will determine your expected return is just the asset allocation. Again, super important to be conservative and also maybe to look at what would be the worst case scenario. So, create a simulation where you start with a down year in the stock market and then your portfolio drops by like 15%. Could be an interesting way to do another scenario where you cover for the worst possible cases, and again, it's just to feel a little bit more confident and comfortable. Because if you enter into retirement today and the next 3 years are positive in the market, it's going to have a huge positive impact on your retirement, as opposed to retire the day before Lehman Brothers declare bankruptcy in 2008.
Mhm. So, in other words, should the investment plan align with your retirement vision? It's like putting all the puzzle pieces together, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really like one piece at a time, one step at a time. So your investment plan should, of course, consider when you're going to retire. And then a lot of retirees think, oh, now that I'm retired, I should put like a huge chunk of my portfolio into fixed income because now it's not the time to lose money. So that's true. It's not a time to lose money, but thinking that you're going to likely retire for like what, 20, 25, 30, maybe 35 years, well, maybe you cannot afford to be fully invested in fixed income and generate a low interest every year.
Mhm.
So having a plan will also tell you what is the perfect asset allocation, according of course to your risk tolerance, but also considering the fact that maybe you cannot afford to generate 3% return on your portfolio and maybe you need a little bit more, which means increasing your exposure to the stock market, so investing
Mhm.
in Canadian or US or international equities. But that's also part of the game. So if you save a lot of money, you don't have to worry about that, but maybe that you're getting a bit short, so now you'll need more returns moving forward.
Mike, we are launching a community called Retirement Loop in January to help people build their retirement plans. You can join our waitlist now, listeners, at thedividendguyblog.com/loop. How can the community help those who want to be happy retirees, Mike?
So we're going to focus on three legs of this community. The first one will be planning. So in the planning section, we're going to talk about how to build your financial projection. You're going to use the retirement loop tools. You're going to find out how much you can afford at retirement. You're going to find out how you can optimize your withdrawals, when it's the right time to take your government benefits and pay less taxes. The second segment, the second leg is investing. So then we're going to talk about how you can create your paycheck, because it's nice to retire, it's nice to have $1 million, but then how can you withdraw money from that?
Mhm.
Is it coming from income, from interest income, from dividend, from capital gain, from selling shares? So we're going to explore various strategies. So it's more like a global level here. We're not going to tell you, oh, you should build a portfolio using this stock screener or this portfolio management tool, but it's more about thinking in terms of strategies and know which one will be the best one for your needs and for your personal situation. And finally, after you plan and you invest, well, it's time to enjoy. So the goal of retirement is not necessarily to write down that 30 pages plan, right? It's to have fun. So
Mhm.
we're going to have like fun monthly themes, including traveling, staying healthy, and other hobbies. Because after all, retirement is not just about planning, it's just about enjoying life.
So again, thedividendguyblog.com/loop to join the waitlist. So no strings attached. It's just going to give you all the details to need to decide if you want to join that amazing community of over 500 members already. Mike, let's end with a summary of what happy retirees have in common.
Well, first, you need a vision. So you need to know where you want to go, what you want to do at retirement. Once you have that vision, well, you need a plan, because without a plan, you're not going to realize that vision anyway. So the financial plan will tell you if you can afford it, when you can afford it, and how you can afford it. To make that plan a reality, you must invest. You must invest your money. You must have strategies, and you must understand what you're doing with your money so you can actually successfully do your plan and complete your vision. And finally, once you have reunited those three factors, well, it's time to enjoy life simply. So having hobbies, finding purpose, knowing like what you're going to do tomorrow, in a week, in a month from now, having objectives, and just staying busy.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Mike, for your insight on retirement planning. Listeners, while this episode was a bit lighter in its topics, vision and plan are keys to a happy retirement. To pursue the discussion, make sure to subscribe to the show now so as not to miss part 2 next week. If you'd like to join a community of like-minded people looking to enjoy retirement, join our Retirement Loop waitlist now at thedividendguyblog.com/loop. For all details, make sure to visit our show notes at thedividendguyblog.com/206. And until next week, stay invested.
Hey, fellow investors, it's Mike here. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Please note that the Dividend Guy Blog podcast is at no time issuing buy or sell recommendation. Please do your own due diligence, as this podcast is recorded for information and hopefully fun purposes only. Make your research, make sure you do your stuff. We're not responsible for your losses or your profit after listening to this episode. And until next one, stay invested.